Hey Matt, great to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's just dive right in. I guess who is Liam? Let's just give us your backstory and how you got into the whole tech startup ecosystem.
Sure. Born and raised in London, Italian mother, Irish father. I'm not sure how much information you'd like on my sort of upbringing and things like that. But yeah, sort of got into tech a few years ago by chance. I was studying law, doing a law degree, but then I sort of stumbled across startups through a sort of mutual friend. I ended up finding someone who was doing a startup of their own and ended up joining his startup. And here I am now, four startups later. I've had three failed ones and hoping that this one might be different. But yeah.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, I'm working on a startup called Coffee Clozers. Nothing to do with coffee. It's about real estate. The title comes from a famous film about real estate called Glengarry Glen Ross. But anyway, the startup basically helps newbie real estate investors find great properties to invest in. So let's say that you're, someone who's saved up a little bit of money. You're looking for your first property to invest in. What we do is we have an algorithm that takes all the properties currently for sale in your target cities. We have 54 cities currently where we're available. And we find basically a combination of the most profitable properties, properties in great locations, and properties that don't require too much renovation work. We put those criteria together to try and get you a short list of the best possible properties that you could invest in. Because at the moment, the way it works is, you go to Zillow, you click on a random property, you try and run the numbers perhaps in Excel, things like that, and then you rinse and repeat for hundreds and hundreds of properties. Even more so if you're going across different cities. Whereas what we're trying to do is automate that whole process and get you, the best two, three properties in any city immediately, so that in theory you could find a great investment property in 5 minutes. That's very much the vision of the company.
Wow, man, that's pretty cool. So like you pretty much like created this new lane for your company. Do you have any like competitors like or anyone trying to like rival you, I guess?
Yeah, we do. We do have a couple of competitors,
Hmm.
but I think that the thing that distinguishes us from them is that they tend to just give you data, whereas we try and give you conclusions. So what they might do is they might give you. So okay, let's make an example. Let's say that you're interested in investing in Detroit. What they might do is they might give you the 500 properties currently for sale in Detroit, and they'll give you a bunch of facts and figures and numbers about all of them. But what we try and do is we try and sort of separate the garbage from the few properties that could actually work and really drive you towards a conclusion rather than just dumping a bunch of data at you, which you then have to kind of sift through.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's
How's
yeah.
usage? How are your users doing right now? Or do you have like any beta users right now or still in development or
Yeah, very early stage.
okay.
So we have about 20 customers, something
Oh,
like
nice.
that. But we have just released basically this new product a couple of weeks ago. So, okay, a little bit of backstory. The old version of the product, what it would basically do, would take all the properties currently for sale in your target city. It would calculate the monthly profitability of each property, and then it would rank them from top to bottom. That's it.
Mhm.
Now, that was okay to begin with, but the big problem with that is that the most profitable properties on paper tend to be properties in really bad condition. And the reason for that is because they're very cheap. And if they're very cheap, it means your mortgage payment is going to be very small. And if your mortgage payment is very small, then when you're looking at rent rates of rent ready properties, in other words, properties which are ready to be rented and that are in good condition, what you're doing is you're taking a rent ready rent rate and comparing that with a property price of a property that is not very good condition. Therefore, the profit looks very high when it's actually not, because it doesn't take
Oh,
into
wow.
account all the money that you would have to invest to sort out the property, get it to a point where it's in good condition, and then actually able to rent it out. So that's why the first version of the product didn't work too well. Like, it could kind of help guide you in a general way, but it definitely wasn't a game changer. Let's put it that way. Whereas what this new product tries to do is it tries to take all these criteria and put it into one. So properties in up and coming locations, properties in good condition, properties that still have good monthly profit. So looking at lots and lots of different variables and sort of triangulating those variables to find the best couple of properties that fit all of those variables. And if we've done it right, really, we should only be getting like four properties out of maybe five or 600 that actually could work. Because most properties, especially right now, obviously interest rates, between 6 and 7% right now.
Hmm.
So what that means is that very few properties actually have positive monthly cash flow, meaning that your mortgage
Gotcha.
payment and your property taxes and all your ongoing monthly costs are higher than your rent, meaning that if you buy a property, you will likely be losing money every month because your mortgage payment and your monthly costs will be higher than your rent rate. So there's very few properties out there where the rent rate is higher than your monthly costs, and which are also in good locations and which are also in good condition,
Mm.
where all those things are true at once, if that makes sense. So our algorithm does all of this for you. It automates this entire process. Now, we launched that product about a week and a half ago. And since then, we've done about 15 user tests, like really going in depth to see if it can work. But the algorithm itself seems to be working very well. So we're super
Nice.
excited to see how this can work. Um, Obviously, there were some bugs, as with any sort of early stage launch, shall we
Of
say,
course,
but
of
we're
course.
quickly fixing those and sort of getting through those. And so we're hoping that in the next few weeks we can do a sort of more grand launch on my co-founder's YouTube channel. Um, because
Gotcha.
my
So
co-founder has a YouTube channel all about tech and real estate. So
perfect.
that's
That's
the connect
perfect.
there.
Yeah. So you're the CEO right now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's
And
correct.
you're also doing engineering as well, and talking to customers and everything else.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm a full stack developer. So
Hmm.
one of my co-founders does all the sort of data science algorithmic side of things.
Okay.
So she actually runs the numbers and finds which are the best properties and how much they would make you and blah, blah, blah. Then I get that data fed into me and then I build the actual web app with everything that you would interact with, shall we say. But the raw data coming into me is done by my co-founder. And then my other co-founder, Maddie, she's a designer. So we have Ariel,
Mm.
who's one co-founder, who's the sort of data brains behind it. Maddie is the sort of artistic brains behind it. With the user interface, the user
Yeah.
experience, design, animations, illustrations, all these sorts of things. And then I'm the full stack developer who sort of puts it all together at the end, and talk to customers and that sort of thing.
Wow, that's cool. So one of the big components in like starting a startup is like finding the right co-founder. So how did you find your co-founders?
Oh Jesus, I could talk to you about this for quite a long time because I've had so many bad experiences.
Oh no.
It's really hard.
Okay.
It's one of the absolute hardest things with a startup, because if you're someone that's truly committed, like you really have
Mhm.
like a deep desire to do a startup, it is so incredibly hard to find someone who also shares that. At least in my experience, I've had many co-founder relationships go sour. Um, it's so hard. And I get it because most people don't necessarily want to work for free. Like, let me put it this way to you, and this can give a little bit of added context. So I graduated from university 4 years ago. In that time, I've either been doing a startup as a startup founder or I've been doing freelance software development. I've never had a
Mhm.
job. I've never been employed in my entire life.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah,
That's crazy.
because I would rather be completely poor. I would rather be absolutely broke, making $800 a month, barely being able to survive, but not having a boss. I can't do it. I can't work for other people. I just can't do it. I refuse. And fair enough. Most people aren't like that. You know, uh, and it's probably a good thing that most people aren't like that, because if everyone was just trying to start bullshit companies, then no one would get any.
True, true,
Sorry,
true.
am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, yeah. But
You're fine.
anyway,
You're fine.
but yeah, if everyone was just trying to start companies, shall we say, no one would get anywhere. You also need people who are going to help bring good ideas to fruition. Like, you need
Exactly.
employees to make
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
economy go around as well. You need both
Precisely.
sides. You need the entrepreneur and you need the employee. So it's a good thing that not everyone is as stubborn as I am, shall we say. But yeah, so it's happened to me several times. You partner up with someone, you think, yeah, we're going to start this company, and then 2 months later, they haven't really done much. They don't really
Mhm.
care. They weren't really willing to work the weekends and the nights, because ultimately they don't really care. Whereas for me, it's all or nothing. I'm a very much an all or nothing kind of guy. And because I don't have a day job, as it were, because I never would have a day job, it was this or nothing. So the startup was always everything to me. Let's put it that way.
Got you. So where did this mentality come from? This all or nothing. Like I'm gonna work. I'm gonna be a successful startup founder, or nothing at all. I'm gonna die trying. Did that come from a young
I
age,
mean, look,
childhood?
if we want to be completely honest here, like, there's definitely a chip on the shoulder there. I
Of
definitely
course.
have a chip on my shoulder, 100%. Um, from when I was young, for whatever reason, I've always wanted to prove to myself, and perhaps, it's probably not good to say, but it's probably true. It is also proving to others as well that you can do it. Especially since we've all had many people in our lives tell us, you can't do this, you're going to fail at that, that isn't going to work. And that stuff really pisses me off. I take it very personally. Let's put it that way. And I'm not saying that's a good thing to do. I'm just being completely transparent, completely honest with my flaws as well, if you know what I mean. I
Yeah.
absolutely take it personally when someone says I can't do it. And so I want to prove them wrong and I want to do it. Um, for me, freedom is everything. Let's put it that way. The ability to, and I was actually just thinking about this very recently, like the ability to wake up and do whatever you want, to work on whatever you want to work on, to me is just everything. Like, yes, money would be great, you know, but I would hate to have a good salary and hate what I'm doing on a day to day basis. Like, that to me would be genuine hell because
Yeah.
just being able to go to nice restaurants and have a nice house and all that stuff is not worth having to suffer 10 hours a day just doing shit that you do not want to do. Like, for me, it's not worth it. So
100%.
like, that's how I see it. How do you see it?
Yeah, honestly, same way. I think, my main goal in life is just to be able to wake up and work on something I'm passionate about with, people who I care about, like good friends and coworkers, and we're all just kind of aligned on a mission. So,
I
and I
completely
think the
agree.
best way is to create
Is
it.
that
Yeah.
even one of the reasons? Is that perhaps one of the reasons why you wanted to start this podcast?
Yeah, pretty much. Just, connect with like-minded people, I guess. So that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons.
100%,
For sure.
100%. This episode one, by the way.
There's
Uh,
two, actually. Yeah.
Episode two. What was it? What was your last one?
Last one was with Will Geller. He's a founder of Story It. So pretty much, you take a picture of, like, I don't know, say you're at a restaurant and you want to, post your meal. You can get paid for that. So it's like kind
Oh,
of
awesome,
loyalty. Yeah, it's a pretty cool idea. Anyways,
awesome.
so throwing it back to you, where'd you get the idea for Coffee Closers?
Well, so I was in Arizona last
Okay.
year. It
Uh huh.
was, is it Memorial Day? What's the other one before Memorial? When's Memorial Day? I always get confused with these US holidays.
Honestly,
Um,
you're asking the wrong person.
I think it was Memorial Day or it was the one just before. It was in
Or
like
yeah,
late May. I
Labor
think it was
Day.
end of May, early June, something like that. I can't remember if that's
Okay.
a Labor Day or a Memorial Day, one of those. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, and I was in Arizona, and basically had some friends there, and we went to Lake Pleasant. I don't know if you ever heard of Lake Pleasant.
I
It's
think I
it's a
have
lake in
actually. Yeah.
Arizona. So we were there, doing the usual stuff. You're on a boat in the middle of the bloody lake, having a few drinks, getting up to no good, one might say. And I was sort of between startup ideas, and I was really looking for my next one. And there was this guy on the boat that I met. His name's Rocco, and I was just kind of brainstorming with him about different potential startup ideas and stuff. And I was asking him, I was like, "Well, what are your problems? What are things that
Hmm.
you struggle with?" And he did quite a lot of stock investing, investing in stocks, uh, all kinds of stuff like that. And he also did real estate investing. And he was telling me, well, when I'm investing, I always have to do loads and loads of research. So, like, for example, let's say that you're going to be investing in aviation stocks. Maybe you're going to be looking into like contracts between airlines and their sort of fuel providers to see what price they've managed to lock in the cost of fuel for how many months, so that way, if fuel prices skyrocket, they'll be okay at least for a period. Whereby, if they've managed to lock in a price for say the next 12 months, you know what I mean. So, in other words,
Yeah.
doing all kinds of obscure research into companies and the sorts of contracts that they may have secured in order to then ascertain, will the stock price go up, will it go down, blah blah blah. So what he was ultimately saying to me was, the things that he struggles with is acquiring information to decide what to invest in, let's put it that way.
Mm.
And
Okay.
then also he was telling me, I also do investing in real estate, and I tend to just use Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, these kinds of websites, and they're not really built for investors. um, and with him, I actually started to sort of very much dig deeper into this, and basically tried to understand what are the main problems with real estate investing, because in the end we decided that perhaps the bigger problem was in real estate. And I actually started the company originally with him, but he was one of the co-founders with whom it didn't work out, shall we
Oh
say.
damn.
But basically, but that's fine. We're on very good terms. It's all good. But he's a nice guy. But uh, yeah, like if it wasn't for him, definitely wouldn't have been able, started this company, because he does real estate investing, and he basically was the one that told me I really struggle to find good investment properties. I struggle to have a website which gives me everything that I need. And so with him, I really quizzed him, sort of cross-examined him, shall we say, like which I always do with people when they have a problem and I'm trying to do a startup around them. Um, ask them a bunch of questions. Why is this difficult? Why do you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you rely on this website? Why doesn't this website give you what you need? And that way you try to ascertain like what are the actual problems that they're trying to solve, and then from there you try and find solutions and so on.
Mhm.
But basically, yeah, I was on a lake in Arizona, met someone who struggled to invest in real estate, and I decided, you know what, this might be an interesting idea.
Wow. Okay. Arizona. Okay, that's where you got your idea. That's cool. So in the past, you said you had three failed startups. Can you talk about like
Pretty
what you
much.
learned from some of those, I guess, failures? I won't really call them failures, more like just lessons learned. I feel like is a better term.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so okay, I should preface by saying it's always difficult to know what is the dividing line between a project and a startup. In other words, how long do you
Definitely.
have to have been working on it in order for it to be a startup? Is it a startup when you incorporate? Is it a startup when you've worked on it for more than 6 months? So on
Hmm.
and so on. So some of them, of those failed ones, some I worked on for a long time. Others I maybe worked on just for a couple of months. So, you can decide, or the viewers can decide what's a startup and what isn't. Um, but yeah, I'd say one. So there's obviously a number of lessons. The number one lesson for me, or let's say two lessons. One of them was learn how to code and become a good coder, or at least have some product skills. You know,
Hmm.
when I first started startups, I was studying law at university,
Yeah.
so something
Big
completely
change.
different. I had no product skills whatsoever, and so I sort of had to teach myself how to code, and that
Oh.
now is extremely useful 4 years on since I first wrote that first line of code. Pretty much about 4 years, a little more, because now if an idea pops into my head, I can just build it. I don't need to rely on someone else. Um, uh, and so that's definitely a huge factor. So learning some kind of product skill, whether it's coding, whether it's design, something like that, I think that's definitely something which really helps. And so especially in those early startups, my coding skills were pretty poor. Whereas I have a little bit more experience now. But the second lesson, which I learned, which I don't necessarily hear a lot of people talking about, but
Uh-huh.
which certainly is the case for me, was do not go after, or I don't want to say do not, but be careful when going after abstract startup ideas. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So, my first startup was an app which would connect home cooks to people who want home cooked meals. I mentioned at the
Oh,
beginning
okay.
I'm half Italian. So I did this in Italy. So in Italy, big food culture,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Imagine the kind of stereotypical Italian grandmother who takes you in, prepares you some food, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, imagine you're walking around the center of Milan or some kind of Italian city, and you take out your phone and you see all of the sort of stereotypical Italian grandmothers in a 10-minute radius from where you are, what they're
Okay.
cooking, and then you can order like a takeaway portion from them. You can get to know them. I was also operating under the hypothesis that the best restaurants that you go to are not necessarily just the ones that do the best food, but they're the ones where you become friends with the owner. Has that ever
Mm.
happened to you, Matt? Have you ever become friends with an owner of a restaurant or an owner of a bar, or someone that worked in the restaurant or someone that worked in the bar and it became your go-to place? I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
I
Um,
literally go to the same coffee shop every Saturday to do some work. So yeah, I can relate to
yeah,
that.
for me, and I think for many people as well, if you have a restaurant where you either really get to know the owner, or at least someone who works there, same thing for a bar, same thing for any sort of hospitality based establishment, like it goes from being maybe a decent place to a really great place, because you have that personal
100%.
relationship. And
Yep.
so what I was thinking was, what if we created an app where not only you can get a home cooked meal, but it's also a way to find like to make friends almost with these stereotypical grandmother people. And so the whole app was very much based around the cook before it was around the meal. So it was around like
Mhm.
showing you who this cook is, and they would
Yeah.
do a video to introduce themselves, and it'd be like, oh, you know, this is Pina, which is an Italian name of a grandmother, a stereotypical Italian name. This is Pina. She's 56 years old. She's 60 years old. She's making the tagliatelle with the bolognese sauce, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to and she says, I'd love to get to meet you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm cooking this, €6 a portion. Would love to see you later. Something like that. So that was the first startup that I built, and I think it was a cool idea. The big problem with it, though, is that it wasn't technically solving a problem. It was about giving you
Okay.
an experience. And the really difficult thing about those sort of startups, especially if it's your first startup and you have no money and you have no contacts,
Uh-huh.
um, it's difficult because your user is not necessarily on the lookout for your service. Like you have
Mm.
to really convince them. Like they're just going about their day. Like your target, who's your target user and something like that? Well, everyone has to eat, you
Yeah.
know your target user is just kind of going about their day. They have no idea that they have any sort of need for this service. They'd really have to use it a bunch of times to really get a feel for it, and then almost make a decision like, do I really like this? Have I stumbled across some cool cooks which I really like and I want to keep going back to, and so on. Whereas something like what I'm working on now is not an abstract problem, it is a very concrete problem. Person wants to invest in real estate. Person goes on Zillow. Person struggles to find good properties. Shit, let's go on Google and try and find something a bit better. So in other words, the individual that I'm marketing to has really experienced the problem. They know that they have a problem. And when they find the perfect solution, assuming that the perfect solution is actually presented to them,
Hmm.
it'll be far easier to convert them because they understand what the solution is. They understand that they have a problem, and they have the money to pay for it, because if they have the money to buy a house, then by definition they can pay something to buy a piece of software, assuming it actually does what it's
Yeah,
supposed to do,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas on my first startup idea, I'm not actually solving a problem for you. It's not like you couldn't eat. It's not like I was solving the problems of starvation for you. Like, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bar, you can do whatever you want. I'm just providing you with some kind of alternative experience. Let's put it that way. And
Mm.
arguably, you could even say that Airbnb was doing that. It gets a bit complicated whether Airbnb was truly solving a problem, because maybe you could argue that there weren't actually enough hotel rooms for people to use. It gets complicated. I don't necessarily know. We don't have to get into it. But what I've learned is that, especially if you're on your early stage startup, and you don't have money and you don't have contacts, and like, it's much easier to start with a very, very concrete problem. You know, so like I said, like the real estate example, or if we want to do another example, like, have you ever heard of Zapier?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Integration.
like I need to connect my Shopify with my Stripe or something like that. I need
Yeah.
some kind of tool which can integrate these two tools. The user who has that problem probably knows that they have that problem. They know that there's something that they want to do, some kind of integration that they want to do, which they're really struggling with. So having a user who knows that they have a particular problem, and they have a very concrete, well-defined problem, which can be easily articulated and isn't as abstract and as quote unquote artistic. And
Yeah.
by artistic I mean less grounded in concrete terms,
Hmm.
less artistic than the idea of, let's give people a culinary experience whereby they can find a quote unquote archetypal grandmother who can feed them and nourish them, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Much harder to get that thing done in the beginning, in my experience. Same thing with another startup I did. Another startup I did was about helping groups of friends book trips.
Oh, that
We
sounds
don't have to get
interesting.
into all the details, but again, it was a much more abstract idea. It was based on the premise that when you and your friends book a trip, usually, or want to do a trip, what tends to happen is that you all procrastinate, and unless one person actually grabs the situation by the balls and says, "Okay, guys, Matt, we're going to book today," okay, and really takes charge of the situation, nothing ever gets done. Everyone just procrastinates. And so it was an app which was trying to encourage one member of the group of friends to take charge and book the trip, and then by them booking the trip for them, it would automatically be booked for everyone else. But
Oh,
even then,
wow.
it's a much more abstract problem. Groups of friends don't necessarily know that they have that problem. It's
Hmm.
not necessarily consciously running through their mind. You'd have to really sit them down and explain it to them, and then only then might they go, oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe I do have this problem, and maybe, yes, I should try out this solution to see how it works. Whereas I said with this real estate startup that I have, it's much easier because the user knows full well that they have the problem. So it's easier to just go from 0 to 1. And that's the hardest thing in a startup, going from 0 to 1. Just getting a handful of people who to actually give a shit about what you're doing is extremely hard. Sorry, I know I banged on quite a lot there.
Dude, it was great. So
Does
how
that
did
make
you go
sense
from
though?
zero to
Does that
one?
make sense though about that distinction between a more concrete problem versus a more sort of conceptual, abstract problem?
Definitely, I think you're touching a bit on the concept of like solution in search of a problem, kind of. Um,
Yes, that too. But
mhm.
the only difference perhaps is that with that it presupposes that there was no problem to begin with. With this,
Good
with
point.
what I'm saying, there may well be a genuine problem. There may well be one, you know,
They just don't know
but
they have it.
but they don't know they have it, and you got to really jump over that extra hoop before you can even present them with the solution. And it's hard enough to get the solution right, let alone having to explain the problem that they have to them as well. But yeah,
Definitely will.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, you laid it out so perfectly. Couldn't have said it any better. Cool. Um, so I guess how did you go from zero to one in your early days of coffee closers? How'd you get those first customers? How'd you market
Yeah,
yourself?
so look, I mean, we're still extremely early stage with
Yeah,
coffee,
that's true.
very, very early stage, but um, I've certainly got farther than I did on any of the other ones. And the way we did it was using pretty much like real estate social networks like Bigger
Mm.
Pockets. Because I don't know, have you ever heard of Bigger Pockets?
Um, a little bit, just through your YouTube video.
Yeah, sure. So it's for those who don't know, it's basically like a social network, which is sort of like Facebook for real estate. Let's put it. It's a forum, like Reddit or something, but specifically just about real estate investing, and things like that. So the nice thing is that because interest rates are so high right now and people are
Mm,
really, really struggling to find a cash flowing property, again, cash flowing, just to reiterate, is where the rent is higher than your monthly ongoing costs, meaning that every month you're making a small profit on that property. Because people are really struggling right now to find cash flowing properties because interest rates are so high and by consequence mortgage payments are so high, if you go on Bigger Pockets any day right now, there's many, many people who are just bitching all day saying, guys, I'm running the numbers, nothing cash flows. Am I doing this wrong? What's going on? Why is everyone rich on YouTube, but when I run the numbers in Excel, nothing works? So what I do is I message all those people. I'm like, hey, and you ask them a couple of questions, you warm them up, blah blah blah, and then a little bit later, I'm like, by the way, I got a little tool I built which can flag all of the cash flowing properties in your target city. Happy to show you it if you like. And usually they're like, yeah, sure, check it out. And then from there, we get on a call. And then usually they're like, oh shit, this is really cool. I
this
didn't
is
know this
pretty good. Yeah.
existed. And then bum, 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 bum. But again, it's so much easier because they actually announced that they have the problem. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I just have to read, I don't have to cold message people as much.
yeah.
Um, well, okay, I do have to cold message them, but I'm cold messaging people that I know have the problem because
It's
they
like
have
a warm
announced to
lead.
the world that they have the problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how we've done it, and that's gone. It's still soul sucking. And by the way, anyone who's looking to do their first startup, you're going to spend so many countless hours messaging people. It's so boring and draining, and people don't talk enough about how much that sucks. Um, but I'm so glad that I did it, and that I keep doing it because it really has helped. It's the only way to do it. Either you're lucky and like Mark Zuckerberg, he just launched Facebook and it instantly started going viral,
Hmm.
but for most people and most things, it unfortunately is not that simple.
Yeah, it's like a
So
black
we're
swan
using
event.
websites like Bigger Pockets, and also my co-founder as well has a YouTube channel
Mm.
about tech and real estate. We haven't used it as much
Uh-huh.
because we want to make sure that the product is really, really good before we do some kind of grand launch. So we want to make sure that maybe a small pool of 5, 10, 20 people really, really love it. And then only when those people truly love this product and just want to keep using it, then we can scale it up with the channel. Because otherwise, you know how it is. You do a grand launch, everyone says it sucks, and then if you try and do another one a couple months later, they might say, "I've tried this sucks. Why are you bothering me with this again?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Uh,
Okay.
so, so yeah, a lot of cold messaging people.
For sure. Yeah. A long, tedious process, but necessary.
Indeed, absolutely.
So, what's your revenue model like? I guess, how you making money?
Yeah, so it's a
Or will be
subscription
making money?
model,
Mhm.
$100 a month. We
Okay.
just upped it to 100. It was 20 on the old product, but now that this
Yeah.
product is at least 10x better, we decided to 5x the price.
Wow. Yeah. That's good, man. It's very valuable. So I feel like when the price is higher too, people take it more seriously. They take it like as an investment in themselves, and therefore, you know, a better product.
One would certainly hope so.
Hmm. For sure. I guess let's talk about how you raised, was it 10K from Jason Calacanis?
125.
120. Oh, I did not know that. Wow, congrats.
We raised 25 up front through a program called Founder University. Um, and then we also managed to get into his launch accelerator, which is like the sort of next step up,
Yeah.
which
Uh-huh.
gives you a further 100K. So the accelerator starts in about 10 days or so. And
Nice.
so total raised, we've raised 125. Yeah.
Wow. And so to get in, you just applied with an idea, because this was, I think when I first messaged you, was this like a month ago, and you had like
Yeah.
just a little MVP
Yeah.
out?
Something like that. No, we had a prototype and we had a couple of
Oh,
paying
prototype.
customers.
Okay.
We had a couple of, like maybe two customers, something like that.
Okay, so you had some traction then, for sure.
Yeah. If we can
Yeah.
call that traction, then yes, we had traction.
Got it.
Um,
Cool. So,
yeah.
what have you learned, I guess, so far in that program, that accelerator? Anything big so far, or?
Okay, so we haven't done the main accelerator. We only did Founder University. Now, Founder University was,
Yeah, for sure.
you do a lecture every week, and they help you out with, basics from design. Maybe one week you maybe talk about design, another week maybe you talk about accounting, another week you talk about incorporation. I mean, look, I'd already done three of these in the past, so
Okay.
I can't say that was I can't say that I found the light during those lectures, if I have to be
Hmm.
completely honest. But definitely being part of what was valuable though was being a part of a program with I think like 100 other companies or 200 other companies. I can't remember exactly how many it
Wow,
was,
that's a lot.
and the fact that we're all competing for that investment because only a handful got it. So that was really really motivating. It's like we're all here, only a few of us are getting the investment. We got to work hard and we got to submit our progress reports every single week. So that's very very motivating. And also the people who run it, Presh and Kelly are their names. As in one guy's called Presh, one girl's called Kelly. Very very helpful, genuinely very helpful and knowledgeable people. You do a pitch every week and you submit it to them, like you do like record like a Loom video and you submit it to them and they give you loads and
Gotcha.
loads of feedback to make your pitch a lot better. And because they've seen thousands of startups over the past maybe 5 6 years, whatever it is, however long they've been working with startups, they have certainly seen a lot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So they can
exactly.
certainly advise you. Just having someone who can say, "Oh yeah, I've seen these other startups who tried this and it didn't work," or "I've seen these other startups try this and it did work." That absolutely has value. And so yeah, so being part of a community that can also be really good if you don't have a co-founder. If you don't have a
Hmm.
co-founder, maybe you join something like Founder University, and maybe you actually realize that your startup maybe you don't think is actually going anywhere, and you can join someone else's and you can team up, or vice versa. Someone else might join yours, and if you have complementary skill sets, then that's fantastic. So yeah, look, networking in general is something that I've done very little of.
Okay.
Um, and Because I always had the mindset of, look, I just need to get shit done. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to spend time talking to everyone else. I need to build product.
You're
I
a
need to find
builder.
something to love, you know. But I absolutely saw the value of networking and building a network and having some contacts. Like it does make it a lot easier. Like taking the time to build a relationship with Launch as an institution and the people who run Launch and things like that has been so beneficial to our company. So like, don't do what I did and just say, fuck networking. I'm just going to work on my. Take a little bit of time to build some contacts and things like that. Because especially in the early stage, if you need someone who is going to believe in you and is going to take a risk on you. And if you have very little traction, which most likely you do if you're just starting out, then having people who believe in you and who can give you some of that margin for error, as it were, where they say,
Uh-huh.
okay, you may not have something right now, but I like you and I believe in you, and I think you might be able to work something out. So here's some money, you know. Like getting to that stage is extremely valuable. So don't be as dismissive as I was of networking and the value of relationships, shall we say?
Yeah, some wise words for sure. Um, I guess next question: where do you see your startup in 5 years?
Well, um, I'm always a little bit hesitant about these kinds of questions because I don't know if the motherfucker's going to work. But to speak completely, what do I? I've already had three failed ones, so I know how this game works. But look, I really do think this one's going to work. But
Yeah, for sure.
we'll I don't want to sit here and just tell you that it will. Um, but uh, Especially since you're not an investor, I can just be honest with you. We're just having a conversation. I'm not
Exactly,
pitching my
exactly.
startup to you. We're just talking. Um, but look, if things go in the way that I would hope that they would go, then yeah, I hope that obviously we have a product that is helping lots of real estate investors, or even just normal people who have a little bit of savings become real estate investors. Like I almost see this as being tantamount to the American dream. It's like, um, you know, normal Americans who are working in everyday jobs, perhaps things they're not
Mhm.
super passionate about. Maybe they're looking for some kind of way out. Um, not everyone wants to start a startup. And to be fair, real estate, although the returns are much smaller, it's much more likely that it'll work than starting a startup. If you're diligent and you save money and you do your research and you find a good investment property, you know, of course, some kind of hurricane could happen and it could destroy your property, or all kinds of things can happen. But generally speaking, if you play your cards right, you can build up a great real estate portfolio over, say, 10, 20 years. It could completely change your life. If over the course of 20 years you get to, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 obviously everyone goes at different paces depending on a whole host of factors. But, if you get a nice fair few investment properties over the course of 10, 20 years, that can completely change your life. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So would you say that's like your whole mission? Like, pretty much like empower people to, I guess, achieve like some kind of
Yes.
financial freedom through investing in real estate?
Exactly.
Okay, I like
Exactly.
that for sure.
That's exactly what it is. To so that they can invest in an asset class.
Uh-huh.
I mean, look, this isn't Bitcoin. This
Yeah,
isn't
it's not that volatile.
this isn't X coin of whatever you want. Like this isn't some sort of virtual thing which may be valuable today and may not be valuable tomorrow, and God even knows what it is. I'm not the most bullish crypto person. Let me put that out there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Um, but real estate, like people need to live somewhere. It's like food. Like just like people need to eat, people need to live somewhere.
Exactly.
So you can obviously make a good real estate investment, you can make a bad real estate investment, but ultimately you are investing in an asset class for which there is inherent demand, and there is something to be said about that. And even if the property doesn't appreciate in the way that you would want it to appreciate, because who knows, sometimes properties appreciate, sometimes they don't. you know who knows. If you invest in something that has good monthly cash flow, then at the very least you're getting something every month. You're basically getting a check every month,
Yeah,
um,
pretty much.
which can help with even just the little things, helping with a portion of your car payment, or anything, you know and if you get some appreciation as well, then maybe in 20 years you sell your portfolio or whatever it is, and you got a nice chunk of money which you can either retire on or pay for your child's university or whatever you want. It's
Yeah,
it's just
for sure.
it's a good thing. It's a generally speaking, it's a good thing. So in 5 years time, that's what I'd love to have a product that could genuinely help real estate investors. And of course, if that means that we're a little bit more successful in the process, then after three failures I'd happily take that as well.
For sure, man. Well, I think you're in a really good vehicle to do so. So, I mean, I really believe in you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, if
We'll,
it's
look,
not
we'll,
inherently
we'll
obvious.
certainly do our best.
For sure, man. All right, so we are coming up on time. I thought I'd just send you off with some rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Cool. All right. If you could have tea with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
There's too many to name.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I don't know. Let's stick with Gianni Agnelli. He was the CEO of Fiat and one of the coolest Italian entrepreneurs ever. Gianni Agnelli. That's his name.
Wow, that's a sick name. Okay. Do you have a favorite song right now?
Um, favorite song. I mean, I listen to music all day, every day. Um, let's say, um, let's say "Sorrow" by Pink Floyd.
Solid choice. Solid choice. Do you have a role model you look up to? Could be like an entrepreneur. Could be someone you're close to.
Sure. There's several. As a kid, my childhood hero was Roger Federer. I've always been a big tennis
Oh,
fan.
nice.
Um, in the entrepreneur world, recently I stumbled. Well, sort of recently, I've been listening to quite a lot of Alex Karp. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's CEO of Palantir.
Oh, I've heard. Oh, yeah.
He's the CEO of Palantir. Very much just kind of speaks his mind, says whatever the hell he wants to say. I quite like him. He's fun.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Notes from Underground, Fyodor Dostoevsky.
Got it. What's your philosophy on life?
Oh, geez. Uh, okay, if you mean it in the most general sense, then
Whatever
what
that.
I would probably say, and this is of course very cliche, but I would say do something that you're passionate about. Like don't just chase the short term financial gain thing. Like freedom, in my opinion, is where it's at. Do whatever it takes to be free, and if the money comes or it doesn't come, you'll figure it out hopefully. But in my opinion, you can't put a price on freedom. That would be my general philosophy, I suppose. Chase freedom.
Oh, wise words. Wise words. Best piece of advice you've ever gotten in your life?
One that springs to mind is never be fooled by charm.
Oh, okay. I like that. Um, and then I guess this would be the last one. If you could frame one quote, what would it be?
Um, Cherish those who seek truth. Beware of those who find it.
I like it. I like it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Liam of Coffee Closers. Do you want to plug anything, or where can people find you?
Uh, sure. Coffeeclosers.com. Closers spelt with a Z. Um, uh, if you're looking for real estate deals, feel free to check it out and let us know if you like it or not. If you don't like it, we have a button on the website that says, "Does our website suck?" Feel free to fill that in and let us know why you think it sucks.
Wow, that's
Hey,
crazy.
we got to get honest feedback from people.
I've
That's the
never,
only way
yeah,
you're going to
never heard of that
improve.
for sure. All right,
Oh, yeah.
everyone,
If you
keep
go on our
on
website
lookout.
in the footer, you'll see on the bottom right of our website, does our website suck? That's going to be there for a long time, as long as I'm running the company.
Wow, very, very, very honest feedback. I like that. Sure. All right, everyone, keep your eye out. Next unicorn right here, Coffee Closers.
We'll do our best. Thanks so much, Matt.